I don't know.
You're probably wondering why I'm not talking to you. It's because Mama said that I could have the Franklin Mint plates that commemorated Eisenhower's first trip to visit the troops. I'm going to get... Anyway.
Yes, you may have those.
I'm Mark McKay.
And I'm Marcy McKay.
And welcome to Sage Smart Solutions. Please join us weekly to learn new and exciting ways to protect your assets and retire tax-free. Why am I pretending like I'm not talking to you?
I guess we're fighting over stuff that someone who passed in our family,
And I don't want to take it too far, because if we start role-playing that we're siblings, it gets uncomfortable in a hurry. But Marcy has written a book on stress patterns called...
Transforming Your Stress When Life Feels Like a House Fire. Really just transforming your stress.
But how do they find that?
On Amazon, and it hit #1 on Amazon Hot New Releases.
Marcy McKay, Marcy McKay. Anyway,
and scene. No.
so Marcy works a lot with people who are dealing with traumatic events. They will call her when they are flaming out, and so I kind of wanted to get her opinion. We've been working with Nationwide and their Land is Your Legacy program, setting up transition plans for farms and ranches throughout the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma, New Mexico. And in doing so, I've really started focusing on the importance of beneficiary designation.
Got it.
And that's how most people react when you say that. But I'm going to tell a story at the end. So if you get bored by this, hang on for a few minutes. I'm going to tell a story. If you're here for the nuts and bolts, go down and watch one of our webinars showing how you can protect your assets and set up a plan specifically for you. Book your strategy call. But what was I talking about?
Beneficiaries.
Beneficiaries. So the importance of beneficiaries is often overlooked. I'll meet with people that'll have $5 million estates, and they just spent $10,000 with an estate planning attorney, and they're like, we've got it all taken care of. Little Timmy has special needs, so we've got a trust set up, I'm like, okay, but you've got a $3.2 million 401k over here with your ex-wife listed as the primary beneficiary.
That's what I was thinking.
And the life insurance policy has the wrong beneficiary on it. The 401k has the wrong beneficiary on it. Those things pass outside of probate. And what does that mean? That means all the stuff that you just paid $10,000 to put down on a piece of paper doesn't come into play. So it's important to just that's kind of an extreme case. I have seen
more than once you've seen that.
But what I've really seen is people just saying, you know what? Sarah is a CPA. She's responsible. I know, Timmy and Jimmy and Donnie and Bobby are all drug addicts, but Sarah's responsible. So I'm going to split it evenly, but I'm leaving it all to Sarah, and it's her job. And I'm not making light of people's addictions, but I've seen this, and I'll sit down and say, listen, first of all, there's some tax implications of you just giving it all to her. She's got to go through, and I'm not going to give legal advice, but it's a mess. But second of all, you just took the kid that is responsible and trustworthy and that, has looked, and you're putting this burden on them.
Right.
Make sure you have written down what your intentions are. And I joked about the commemorative plates, but I've seen that kind of things. And it'll be, some artist that meant something to this family. They'll have a $300 painting that'll cause two siblings to not talk to each other for 5 years.
Right.
Or, the silver, which just gets passed down, brought out twice a year, and then tears up a family after 30 years. So I wanted to kind of get your input. Do you see this kind of thing amongst people that it's clear they have good relationships, they love each other, they care, they want to do what the parents are, but then they just turn into total jerks over things. And I don't want to, I understand that a lot of these things are sentimental, and
right.
and that's where that value, but it is important to have a plan in place. Get a piece of paper that not just says, Sarah's my executor, I want everything split 5 ways, or that kind of thing. Make it specific. Work with a team of experts who can put together a plan for you. because that's the last thing you want is your legacy to create turmoil between the people that you created.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
you loved. And the best thing in the world is when those people love each other.
Right.
And anyway, so
Well, a couple of thoughts that come to mind. Number one, since specifically in this case you're talking about grief, everybody grieves differently, and so it just, you never know what it's going to bring out in someone. And we actually just saw this in some childhood friends who a parent died. It was the last parent, the dad had already died years ago. It was the mom, and this is a tiny example, even though it's not about money, but she didn't specify what she wanted in her funeral. And they were scrambling those days. They couldn't even get to the grief because they were all arguing what kind of funeral mom would have wanted.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is so much bigger.
But
'cause
it's not
money.
But it's not really because
Right.
because you think about the 5 days after somebody's passing.
Right.
Make it as simple as possible.
Right.
And you can do this without a lawyer.
Right.
Go sit down with a piece of notebook paper and say, if I hear the 23rd Psalm, I'm coming back, or whatever your pet peeve is, or if I don't hear Onward Christian Soldiers, or if they're marigolds at the funeral,
Right.
write it down. And I know
Right.
it seems silly. I have clients that probably had several $100,000 art collections that Cindy's has a blue sticker on it, Bobby's has a green dot on it.
Right. It just
Or
it
videotape
helps.
it. Take your phone.
It helps the family so much on so many different levels. One, because whoever died, their wishes are being fulfilled. I want this to go to that person. I want this to be handled this way. And the other is the family left behind. It takes the pressure off them because they know exactly what mom, dad, grandmother, whoever, what exactly their wishes are. And it just, families are so messy anyway because it's just, complicated, all the feelings that go with family, that it just makes it crystal clear of what is wanted.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen people, actually give some of those assets before they're passing for that very reason, just because they wanted to make sure that
Right.
that's how it
went
was
the
handled.
way they wanted.
I promised I would tell a funny story, and I guess it wasn't funny at the time, but I used to work for a firm that we put in trusts and estate planning packages, and a lot of what I did was drive throughout really the top third of Texas, helping people fund their trusts. Basically, it's putting assets in the name of the trust. So like we said, you can have a great trust, but if you've got your IRA and it's got a beneficiary that's different from what the trust says, you're defeating the purpose. But anyway, I had a guy, and I think it was in if you're not from Texas Panhandle, this may not mean much, but it was in Pampa, Tech. It was either Pampa or White Deer. White Deer's
Even tinier than Pampa.
But Pampa's 45 minutes from Amarillo, which most people probably not heard of Amarillo, but I'd been calling this older gentleman, trying to set up a time to come out there and look at some of his assets that he had not put into the name of the trust. And he was grumpy. I don't know if the guy who came before me had put a hard sell trying to upsell him on stuff, but he really didn't want to meet. And then finally he's like, okay, come out here. And this year the 4th of July was on a Friday, and depending on where you're watching this, the 4th of July is a big thing in our part of the country. My dad actually took a 1972 Jeep and had it painted red, white, and blue because he got tired of coming in second in the 4th of July parade. So it's kind of a big deal. We've got a bunch of people, family come together and stay out in the country. Anyway, 4 o'clock on Thursday, that's all people are thinking about. It's 4th of July weekend. I'm starting it now. And this guy's like, okay, you can come out to Pampa, sit down with me 4 o'clock on Thursday. And I was like, okay. And we were actually staying out in the country, so it was even further. It was about an hour and a half drive. I get out there, and the guy's not there. and there's a young man, probably mid-20s, late 20s, and I'm in my 40s, and he's mad. He's like, get in here, and I'm like, he's like, Dad left. And I'm like, okay, is there a better time for me to reschedule this? He's like, get in here. I'm tired of you guys coming in here. And this was he clearly had some sort of a meth addiction or crack. He was not doing well. And this was a burden. The dad and I discussed it a little bit, and I knew that this was one of the concerns because it was the last person in the world that you wanted to give $700,000 to in a lump sum. So a lot of planning was involved. Guess who did not like that planning? The crack addict
the son
did not
with the
appreciate,
addiction.
the fact that we were trying to keep him from having all the money at once. And so he brings me into this, this modest house in a suburb of Pampa, Texas, and just starts getting manic. And I'm like, oh, this guy's on something. This guy's coming off of something. And this was before I was all jacked up like I am now. And I was skinny. I'm 6 foot tall, but I'm skinny, and not as skinny as this guy was. And so that was the saving grace, is that I thought, okay, push comes to shove, this guy weighs $120. It really was kind of.
Yeah, no.
And so I'm in this house, and there may have been plastic on the carpet, where you were supposed to walk. I may have invented that. I've been in several of those places with the plastic on the couches, that kind of thing.
So what happened?
But I'm sitting there, and the guy's ranting, and he's like, "You guys," he's like just cursing at me, impugning my character, that we're all looking to he doesn't understand why his dad can't give him some money now, this kind of thing. And I'm like, this is bad. And I remember thinking, I'm sitting on the couch, the coffee table's in front of me, and I start looking around for something to hit this guy with. I'm like,
well, to protect yourself if he attacks you.
He had a knife on his belt, and I'm just like, and the only thing I could see, and I go to church every week, so don't yell at me. There was, I'm sure it came from, you remember Best Products? I don't remember Best Products, but it was a
praying hands.
A cast. I don't know if it was ceramic or if it was resin, but they were black, shiny hands praying. And I just remember thinking, how ironic is it going to be that I'm going to have to clock this guy over the head
with the praying hands.
With the praying hands to get out of there and go back and see my kids and celebrate the country's birthday.
What ended up happening?
So I'm sitting there and I'm like going, do I hit him with that? Do I, there's a couple of Reader's Digest maybe. And the phone rings. And I think he's on a corded line. Maybe he's on a. I think he was on a corded phone to the kitchen, and it was kind of an island deal between the kitchen. He comes around. He's like, don't go. And I just got it. I said, hey man, I've got exactly what you need. Let me run to the car real quick. I'm gonna get it. You finish your phone call. I'll be right back. And I headed my butt back to Canyon, Texas, just as quickly as I could.
Did you call that man again, or did you let it go?
I called the home office that had set the appointment. I said, because the guy's dad was fairly abusive every time I talked to him too. So I don't know, I don't know who hurt him, but it wasn't me. Anyway, I hope that guy got the help he needed. But I've seen some weird stuff out there. Some millionaires with dead animals under the floorboards that, just strange stuff. So I
want to bring up one more point. I know it's not happy to think about you dying or your spouse
being murdered by a meth head in Pampa, Texas.
I'm talking about dealing with any
yes.
of this. It's not pleasant, but we're all going to do it. So what helped me when we finally sat down and did our will was my love. We just had our daughter at that point, that I love this child, and if something did happen to me, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I would want my wishes very clear of what to happen, and I wouldn't want to be a burden on my loved ones. And so I totally get it that nobody likes to think about.
We totally
dying.
get it, because the first planning that we ever did, and this is after we had I think we maybe just had one child at the
Yeah,
time.
it was Mason.
But we were about to go out of the country, and we were sitting
Oh, no, we had 2 by then.
at a table with our priests who were witnessing a letter that basically said, if something happens to us, this is who we want to take care of our children.
Right.
So it that's the way it is.
Yeah,
But
we get it.
you understand that this is the time that you don't want the people important to you. And with some of the estate planning, we've been doing the transition planning with Nationwide's Land is Your Legacy program. We've got to make sure the farm keeps going. Right. So it's not just, okay, let's take this asset and title it this way or structure it this way so that it goes to this person. There are royalty checks that have to be processed. There are fees, there are contracts. There's equipment that's, running a farm. I don't want to get too far. I don't want this to be specifically farm and ranch, but it's just important to put as much down in writing as you can and do it correctly. So book your call now. Let's schedule your strategy session. If nothing else, let's just discuss your beneficiary designations. Have a great week.